Okay guys, we are back with another chapter of One Piece. Well, this time it's two chapters, 1099 and 1100. Unfortunately, half the files on the 1099 video got corrupted, and because I was behind schedule, I decided to incorporate it into this video, which will make it a little bit longer, but you get two for the price of one video, and it neatly ties everything together before next week's break. And in these two chapters, we see some utterly insane stuff, with Kuma meeting some very important characters. So you better stick to the end as we're covering it all. And as always, please like and subscribe, it really helps this small channel grow. I really appreciate all of your support, it's making my dream come true. Now, getting into it, in chapter 1099 called Pacifist, it starts off with Kuma furious and in a furnace of burning houses, saving everyone he can. King Bakori explains that he got this idea from a country in the east where they curried favour with the celestial dragons by burning all their trash. And he's obviously talking about the Goa Kingdom on Dawn Island where Luffy grew up at Windmill Village. Now this idea that King Bakori is describing is when Goa Kingdom decided to burn down bandit and trash ridden Grey Terminal in order to impress the approaching world nobles. Continuing on, the people of the Sorbet Kingdom are rioting in the palace, calling for the end of the southern province's destruction, and suddenly we see Kuma's seething and bloodlusted face. As King Bakori shouts, Kuma brings his full force down upon him, destroying the entire palace. The people crown Kuma the new king, and Saturn somehow finds out. But then Kuma explains that he's just the figurehead, and that Bulldog, the previous king, is really the one running the country. Suddenly we see Bonnie almost all grown up running laps around the church. The old people and her friend Gyo Gyo are all surprised, questioning who this woman is, and Kuma is absolutely dumbfounded, mistaking her for Ginny. Bonnie then looks in the mirror and screams, and we find out that it could be the age fruit, and everyone questions where she got it from. Bulldog appears at the door and says he's come with dire news. And we learn that King Bakori is plotting another comeback and is smearing Kuma's name. Kuma asks Bulldog that he takes care of Bonnie, and the scene then switches to Kuma lying in wait on a small boat in front of huge marine warships. King Bakori orders them to fire, continuing to call him a tyrant and corrupt, but Kuma swiftly sinks the entire armada. After that, Kuma would travel the world in search of answers for a cure to Bonnie's disease. And these islands are actually the very same islands that Kuma sent the Straw Hats to.
It's so sad Steve Jobs died of ligma.
Who the hell is Steve Jobs?
Ligma balls.
The first island we see is Torino Island, which is the one Chopper was sent to. The next one is Kurigana Island, the one Zoro was sent to and Mihawk's former residence. And Kuma then arrives on Karakuri Island, where Frankie was sent to. Then into Tequila Wolf, where Robin was sent to. Next is probably Namakura Island, where Brook was sent to, but I'm not sure. After that he goes to Witheria, the Sky Island, where Nami was sent to. And finally to the Boyne Archipelago, where he sent Usopp. Suddenly Dragon's ship appears near Kuma's boat and the revolutionaries greet him happily. Here Dragon mentions that he knows of a scientist called Dr. Vegapunk. He continues that there's been an accident and the security is lax around him, meaning Kuma could go see him. The scene then moves to a place called Lab 08, which turns out to be the future location of Egghead, where we see Kuma and Bonnie meeting Vegapunk. Dr. Vegapunk then reveals that he can in fact cure her, and that he's going to do it with a stem cell transplant. Vegapunk looks at Kuma's records and is surprised to find out Kuma is a buccaneer. And taking advantage of his buccaneer blood, Vegapunk slyly mentions that he'll waive any medical expenses if Kuma gives permission for him to make his clones into soldiers. Kuma, being desperate, agrees, and Vegapunk explains that his clones will be peacekeepers and ward off evildoers. We swiftly switch to Mary Joie, where Saint Garcia Saturn comments on Vegapunk's planned weapons, saying that a weapon's worth is defined by how many people it can kill. We switch back to Kuma and Vegapunk, where Kuma calls himself a pacifist, and then Vegapunk names the clones pacifistas. And the chapter ends there, and we are going to go straight into the new chapter 1100, which is a perfect milestone. I seriously have trouble fathoming the fact that One Piece has 1100 chapters. Now, getting into it, chapter 1100 is called Thank You Bonnie. And it starts off with Kizaru at Lab 08 saying he's here on business. He says that this new lab is not like Punk Hazard, and Vegapunk says it's hard to think straight with the amount of ideas he has for Lab 08. Kizaru then confirms that this lab is tapped with loads of spy Denden Mushis, and they're not happy with Vegapunk making a deal with a pirate. Vegapunk relents and Kizaru says he's just doing his job. We then move to Vegapunk and Kuma sitting in a room with Saturn's Denden Mushi that Kizaru had brought. Saturn states angrily that Vegapunk is making a deal with a pirate who has a 296 million berry bounty, and making a pirate the face of their clone program would be detrimental to the Navy's reputation. He continues that he has stipulations if they want the backing of the world government. The first one is Kuma must become a warlord of the sea, mentioning that they're one short due to a pirate named Ace. And this is probably referring to when Ace denied the invitation to become a warlord, or at least the speculation that he defeated another warlord around the time he joined the Whitebeard Pirates. The second condition is for Kuma to become a weapon for the world government, becoming a paragon of fear for pirate scum worldwide. Kizaru agrees with this statement and Vegapunk tells him to can it. Saturn continues that if Kuma accepts their offer, they will however take precautions so he wouldn't be able to turn on them, bringing them to the final condition, which is that Kuma must agree to give up his free will and sense of individuality. Vegapunk is furious and shouts that this would be basically killing him, and if they snuff him out he'll be nothing but a robot. But Saturn reminds Vegapunk he is a military scientist and has no right to object. These are the conditions Saturn lays out for Kuma to save Bonnie, saying it's a small price to pay for the procedure. Which, I don't know, it's basically giving up his life for the life of Bonnie. I don't think that is a small price to pay. Vegapunk is still adverse to it, but Kuma jumps in asking him to do it, saying that he thought it was impossible to save Bonnie and that he's incredibly grateful that he can do it. And in tears, he means to happily accept this fate if it means Bonnie is saved. Vegapunk tears up as well, and Kizaru hangs his head, and Saturn ruins the moment with his dumbass looking snail. Bonnie plays with Sentomaru while Saturn asks Vegapunk how long the processes will take, and Vegapunk states that dealing with the Sapphire Scale will take about 6 months, with an extra year on top before she can be exposed to light, and Kuma's modification will take 2 years. Saturn asks if they can trust Kuma to be obedient, and Kuma says he won't run away. But this isn't enough, and Saturn continues that he'll be taking custody of Bonnie once her treatment is complete and will free her after Kuma's modifications are finished. This infuriates Vegapunk even more, who says that Kuma won't get to see Bonnie after she's cured. Saturn confirms this and says that if there's any hint of defiance, he won't hesitate to turn Bonnie into a slave. Kuma promises he won't see her, but on one request of his own, that no one tells her about her captivity, and that she needs to be taken back to Sorbet Kingdom after she's cured. If Saturn can promise this, Kuma will obey, and Saturn agrees. Bonnie and Kuma reunite, and he tells her that they're staying together in this facility. And Vegapunk is now infused with the opportunity to make the weapon of his dreams, and his thoughts are overflowing, but he can't keep up, and jokingly wishes that he needs 5 more of him to complete his daily tasks, which is another great foreshadowing moment to Vegapunk's satellites. We see both Kuma and Bonnie being tested respectively, and they smile and play together during the processes. A cargo ship comes, and there's a great scene of everyone eating, including Kizaru, Kuma, Bonnie, Sentomaru, and Vegapunk. They then dance to the Nika drums, and you even see Kizaru dancing as well, which is insane since the present day he's fighting Nika, or at least the reincarnated power of Nika. Not very admiral-like of him. This potentially might foreshadow a change of heart in him, but who knows. We move forward in time about 6 months, and Vegapunk says that Bonnie will be cured after another year of rehabilitation. Kuma and Bonnie both thank him, and back in the Sorbet Kingdom, Kuma has brought Bonnie back to the church to live out the rest of the year. She greets the old folks and Gyogyo, who are ecstatic that she'll be better soon. Granny Connie comes in and says that they'll be more than happy to take care of her, and Kuma leaves her in their hands and says to Bonnie he won't be back for at least a year. They promise to sail the seas together after she's better, But unfortunately, Kuma knows the truth and can't bring himself to say anything to Bonnie. Suddenly, an intelligent agent called Alpha from Cypher Pole 8 comes in and says she's a nurse and will be looking after Bonnie. Alpha orders everyone around and then she threatens Kuma for him to not return. He agrees and gives one last goodbye to Bonnie, smiling happily and saying he's so glad she was born. He then leaves and then we learn that Kuma has become a Warlord of the Sea now. And in this part of the chapter, we get the Warlord's reaction to the new member. First, we see Doflamingo, who says it sounds like a new villain has come to play. And oh, Dofi, you couldn't be further from the truth. Next is Crocodile with Miss All Sunday Robin. It's honestly so weird seeing a Straw Hat member in a flashback like this. And Crocodile doesn't care about it, and we move on to Mihawk, who just looks at it blankly and doesn't say anything. We also get a surprising flashback to Kobe and Alvida seeing Kuma in the paper. And also a beloved look at Ace together with Jinbei, Whitebeard, Marco and Blackbeard all crowded around to see the new member of the Warlords. We also get a look at Boa Hancock, who is as ever uninterested in news about men. And finally Gecko Moria, who comments about his poor palmed hands. We also get to see the reaction from the revolutionaries, who are very surprised at Kuma's sudden position now under the world government. And Dragon remains silent. The scene moves back to Kuma on his ship as he writes to Bonnie saying it's harder to sail in peace since he's so well known. And he's got an adorable sail that's from a drawing Bonnie did of him earlier in the chapter. He continues in his letter that he's trying to find some travel locations for when she's better and hopes everyone at home is doing well. Then, completely unexpected, Kuma's ship is seen arriving at Windmill Village and we get a quick look at younger Luffy being chased by a lion. Kuma then gets an order from the world government and he responds that he's in the East Blue and what are his orders, and the chapter ends there with Kuma heading to the village where Luffy is at. And seriously, what a surprise. I wasn't expecting that at all. I was trying to rack my brain if we got hints at Kuma meeting Luffy beforehand, but I couldn't think of anything, and I don't think there is. I really wonder what he's doing there and what his orders are. But also at the same time, I can't tell you how happy I am to see Luffy's face. It's literally been months, and it just shows you how unbelievably close we are to the present day. Probably only about like 3 years away now. And I'd say what a kind of happier ending, but because of all the present day events that we know will happen, there's just this horrible sense of foreboding, and Saturn's appearance doesn't help as well, since his own plans have subjugated Vegapunk to create weapons for the world government instead of peacekeeping like Kuma and Vegapunk wanted. But we're getting such a deep dive into Saturn here as well. He's definitely related to the core of Kuma's backstory, and I do wonder if we're going to get similar treatment with the other Elder planets. I do hope so, but since we're pretty much in the final saga, I wonder if we'll have an arc for each Elder and then the final one for Emu. But these chapters do raise some questions, since the pacifistas are now said to be clones of Kuma and not just cyborg robot recreations, which a lot of people thought from the beginning. I saw some people speculate that the giant paw bearing Kuma's memory could merge with all the pacifistas since they're all clones, imbuing them with free will. Kuma's desire for keeping the peace could motivate the pacifistas to join forces with the revolutionary army and create a big alliance that would shape the foundation of the world. Then again, it's hard to imagine since the pacifistas are so robotic. However, this could happen with the Seraphim, which can definitely be broken from the control chip, since Luffy already did it with S-Snake. But we get to the most important parts of these two chapters, why Kuma was stripped of his memories and turned into a cyborg, as well as how he became a warlord and how Bonnie got cured. Which is just so sad that he's now a husk of his former self in order to save the person he loves. And I want nothing more than for him to get his revenge in the present day. I am a little disappointed in the fact that suddenly Bonnie ate her through and then got her powers. Like, I'm almost sure that Oda had absolutely no idea how to write it into the story and just decided to make it happen out of nowhere. But the rest of the chapters are peak, so I don't mind too much. Overall, these two chapters are incredible and it gives us so much more information on the world. I love how it connects everything together, like the Goa Kingdom inspiring the Sorbet King, Kuma travelling around all the islands he sent the Straw Hats to, Caesar destroying the laboratories with Laboratory 8, Bonnie's relationship with Sentomaru, and Vegapunk and even Kizaru, Eva's arrest, Dowager Connie who was at the Reverie. I could go on and on. These chapters connected so much information that I didn't even think was possible. Oda is still a god tier writer when it comes to world building. But it's coming to the end of this video, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I'm really happy you stopped by to watch this video. My channel is steadily growing, and I'm amazed at the support I'm getting. It truly makes me happy. Thank you again, please like and subscribe, it really helps me out, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, see ya!